Chris Barzinski. I married the girl I had always put on a pedestal. We were high school classmates. She was the star of every play and musical our school had. She went off to NYU to study theater and acting, and I went off to college and played football. And 10 years after the fact, we both ended up in our hometown again after she had toured the world with a stage company and done commercials and soap operas. And she walked into a club and I was on stage with a rock band, singing and playing guitar. And the last she knew of me, I was a professional football player, so her jaw hit the ground. And she came up to me and said, why didn't you ever tell me that you sang and played guitar? And I told her, there's so many things you don't know about me. You know, why don't you slow down and give me a chance? And we spent the next month and a half together, 24/7. We didn't leave each other's side, and fell very much in love. And after a funeral for a friend who had committed suicide, she turned to me and said, let's get married. And it was like a dream come true for me. This girl that I had always wanted and never thought I had a chance to have, wanted me. And I looked at her and I said, yeah, I just want to elope. I don't want it to be about anything but us. So we made plans to go to a justice of the peace, and the night before our wedding, we sat down and shared a bottle of wine, and I looked at her and I said, there's so much that's happened in the 10 years that we haven't seen each other. I just want you to know everything. I don't want somebody to come to you and tell you something that I didn't tell you. So I told her everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly, everything I was proud of, all I was ashamed of, all the women I had been with. And I assumed that she did the same because she told me some pretty horrific stories. Her first day in New York City as a student at NYU, her father had dropped her off and he left, and a minute later she got a knock at the door, and thinking it was him, she just opened it, and a man held her down with a knife and raped her. She had to have an abortion from the rape. She also told me a story about a nightclub owner here in New York who she was involved with, and after a year or so she found out that he was connected with the mafia. And she broke it off with him, and he had her followed, had her kidnapped, had her sodomized, and threatened her life, threatened the lives of her family if she went to the police. And she left New York. She went back to our hometown of Allentown, Pennsylvania. And I sat there shaking, and I could not believe that I was hearing these things that this amazingly beautiful woman had gone through. And I found myself judging her, and I looked at her and I thought to myself, how can you judge her? You know, how many women have you been with? And I looked at her and I said, if that's the worst you can tell me, I don't care. I love you. I want to marry you. And the next day we got married, and friends of mine witnessed the ceremony. And that night we stayed at their house, and in the middle of the night, my brand new wife stole 3 diamond tennis bracelets from my friends without my knowledge. And the next morning we left for our honeymoon. And on our honeymoon, in our conversations, more stories came out, incestuous things that had happened to her and her family. She had worked, after being raped, decided that if men were just going to take her body, she was going to get something for it, and she was working as a prostitute while waitressing at the Hilton in our hometown. And again, I let this sink in and felt, you know, that she was being honest with me. I couldn't judge her. I loved her. I just wanted to move forward. And we returned from our honeymoon, and we still weren't even living together. We had 2 separate apartments. She had to go to work. I went back to my apartment, and there were 7 frantic messages from my friend telling me to call. So yeah, I called, and he informed me that 3 diamond tennis bracelets were missing, and everything pointed to my wife, Jennifer. It was as if I left my body and I was on the ceiling looking down at myself, and I said, "I'll call you back." I went through her things and I found them. And I had to go return these tennis bracelets to these people who treated me like family. And I had no explanation. I had no idea why she would do something like this. And I had heard rumors that she was using cocaine, but I asked her at least 3 times, and she denied it every time, and I had to believe her. And when I returned home after returning the bracelets, she was sitting there in her living room, crying with a knife in her hand, and I didn't know what to do. I ended our marriage that night. I said, "I'll stay with you, I love you, you're gonna go to counseling, you're gonna get help." And I went to counseling with her, and before it was said and done, it was 6 months had gone by before the divorce was final, but we were still a couple. I still wanted to help her, and she moved down to Florida. I had spent the weekend down in Florida with her, and it seemed like she was getting herself together. She had a good job and was happy, and upon returning home, I had a gig that night with my band, and a friend of hers proceeded to tell me all the things that Jennifer lied to me about using cocaine. She had also stolen $2,000 from a register at her job at Princess Borghese that she lied to me about. And the kicker was that she told me she was a shiatsu massage therapist and had elderly wheelchair-bound clients whose home she would visit to give them therapy, and what she was really doing was going 2 towns over to work at a topless massage parlor while we were married. And I was reduced to an embarrassed and ashamed man. I felt an inch tall, and I could not believe that she had lied to me, and I could be so easily duped. And that night I called her, and I said, I don't wish you any harm. I hope you get your life together, but I don't ever want to speak to you again. And that was the last I heard of her.